Hello everyone, and welcome to Train Talk. 10 years ago, I started Train Talk as my first regularly narrated video series, in which I would cover one particular topic in the world of trains and railroads. Now, a decade later, it has become one of the most popular series on the channel. To celebrate a full decade of Train Talk, today's episode focuses on a Locomotives series that has been one of the most requested topics of all time for a Train Talk episode. This Locomotive series also just so happens to be celebrating its 10-year anniversary this month. That's right, we are finally going to be talking about the Siemens Mobility Charger locomotive family. As with other locomotive-focused episodes of Train Talk, we will start with a brief discussion of the Charger, taking a look at some technical specifications and model numbers, followed by a look at the history of these locomotives. We have a lot to get to in this episode, so let's get started. But first, what is a Charger? The Charger is a series of locomotives built by Siemens Mobility in the Florin neighborhood of Sacramento, California. These locomotives were initially developed in the early 2010s as a diesel-electric passenger locomotive intended for intercity use. They are based on the highly successful Vectron series of diesel and electric locomotives that have been produced for dozens of railroads in Europe. The first Charger was completed in March of 2016. In the decade that followed, about 250 Chargers were constructed for intercity, commuter, and long-distance use, with more than 200 additional locomotives still on order. While Siemens does have a long history of building light rail vehicles in the US, as well as the ACS-64 electric locomotive, the Charger is the first diesel locomotive Siemens has constructed for the North American market. In most cases, Chargers have been purchased by railroads to replace older second and third generation passenger diesels, although some have been acquired for brand new routes or service expansions. The Chargers, in many ways, are a noticeable improvement over older locomotives. Chargers have a top speed of 125 miles per hour and produce between 4,000 and 4,400 horsepower. The main engine is a high RPM Cummins QSK95 diesel engine. This is a 16-cylinder, 4-stroke diesel engine capable of meeting U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Tier 4 emission standards when coupled with the Charger's diesel exhaust fluid aftertreatment system. With this system, the locomotives have a 95% reduction in particulate matter and an 89% reduction in emissions compared to Tier 0 locomotives. Emissions are not the only thing that has been reduced. In a sharp contrast from older units, Chargers are some of the quietest diesel locomotives to be produced in the US. Chargers also have quicker acceleration over older locomotives featuring alternating current traction motors. While AC traction has been used in US freight locomotives regularly since the 1990s, the Charger was one of the first passenger diesels built in the US to employ AC traction rather than the more traditional direct current. Head-end power is supplied by the main engine through a static inverter system rather than a separate onboard generator. Chargers can also supply additional power generated through dynamic braking to the HEP system, which helps lower fuel consumption. Designed to meet all clearance restrictions on railroads in the US, Chargers have a noticeably similar profile to older Genesis series units, which were also engineered to meet tight clearance requirements. Chargers have a length of 71.5 feet, a width of 10 feet, a height of 14.7 feet, and an overall weight of 267,000 pounds. The body of the locomotives features an aerodynamic nose with flat, smooth sides and streamlined roof sections that are rounded off at the edges. The monocoque design of the body provides structural support for the locomotive as a whole. One of the most characteristic features of the locomotive is the large see-through section shaped like an X on each side of the unit. These side see-through grills are used to cool the locomotive's prime mover. Since production began, 8 different model variants of the Charger have been produced. Let's go through all the different models in the series and talk about some of the distinct spotting features. The first Charger variants to be built were the SC44 types. SC stands for Siemens Charger, and 44 denotes that these locomotives are capable of producing a maximum of 4,400 horsepower. SC44s have been built for 3 different commuter railroads and 3 different state transportation agencies for use on intercity Amtrak trains. These locomotives are now in operation on Amtrak Midwest, Amtrak Cascades, Pacific Surfliner, Capital Corridor, and San Joaquin services, as well as Coaster, Altamont Corridor Express, and MARC commuter trains. SC44s feature a unique nose design that includes a train destination sign. They are the only Chargers to feature this style of locomotive nose. Another feature unique to the SC44 is a set of strobe warning beacons installed above the locomotive cab. Locomotives produced for the state of California also feature a redesigned rear roof section with a spoiler to match up with the height of the bi-level passenger cars used on most Amtrak California trains. Next in the Charger series is the SCB40. These locomotives were produced exclusively for Florida's Brightline passenger train service, hence the addition of the letter B in the locomotive designation. SCB40s operate in pairs as part of semi-permanently connected train sets with Venture passenger cars, also produced by Siemens Mobility. Because of this, the locomotives are rated for 4,000 horsepower rather than the 4,400 of the SC44. Also in contrast to the SC44, the SCB40 features a streamlined front nose cone, which also serves as a shroud for the front coupler when the train sets are operating in revenue service. A long-distance variant of the Charger was first completed for Amtrak in 2021. Dubbed the ALC-42, or Amtrak Long Distance Charger 4,200 horsepower, these units feature a larger fuel tank for long-distance service. Like the Brightline units, these locomotives have a streamlined nose cone. Since the ALC-42s are regularly coupled on both ends, the nosepiece does not cover the front coupler as it does in the case of the SCB40. Siemens has also produced a commuter variant Charger rated for 4,200 horsepower with the same Amtrak-style nose design, dubbed the EC42. These locomotives were produced for the EXO commuter train service in Montreal. Via Rail Canada purchased several train sets, each of which feature one Charger locomotive. These units are designated as SCV42, or Siemens Charger Via 4,200 horsepower. SCV42 units have a standard coupler at the front of the locomotive and special couplings at the back end for semi-permanent connection to the train sets. The Via units have several unique features, including a custom redesigned nose that includes a third headlight, a feature unique to Canadian passenger locomotives. Siemens has also produced 3 SC42 type locomotives for the soon-to-resume Ontario Northlander intercity train service. These units are more or less identical to the Via Chargers and will also be operating as part of a train set. Along with these all-diesel Chargers, Siemens Mobility has developed multiple dual-mode units. The first of these is the SC42DM, produced initially for New York's Metro North commuter trains. These units are very similar to the Amtrak and EXO Chargers appearance-wise, but have electrical third-rail pickups on each side of the locomotive. Another dual-mode Charger that is in the very early stages of production is the ALC-42E. These locomotives are being purchased by Amtrak as part of their new semi-permanently connected Aero train set order for the northeastern U.S. and the Cascades corridor in the Pacific Northwest. The sets that will run in the Northeast will feature a newly designed passenger car placed directly behind the locomotive, dubbed an APV or Auxiliary Power Vehicle. The APV features either a pantograph for electrical pickup or battery storage. Electricity is funneled to the ALC-42E through a wired connection, allowing the locomotive to operate in full electric mode. The lead truck of the APV also features traction motors, which can be used to provide additional motive power when operating off the pantograph. For the most part, the ALC-42E looks nearly identical to the long-distance ALC-42. The key spotting feature of the ALC-42E is wider spacing between the rear headlight housings, where the heavy-duty electrical wires between the APV and the Charger are attached. In addition to these models, new locomotives have been ordered by Trinity Railway Express in Texas and Tri-Rail in Florida. The new Trinity Railway Express Chargers feature a receptacle between the rear headlight housings for a wired connection like Amtrak's ALC-42E units. These units will reportedly have the designation of SCD-42E. Metro-North also has a new variant of Charger on order that will be fully electric, a first for the Charger series. These units will be equipped with a pantograph for overhead electrical pickup as well as onboard battery storage. Chargers may be celebrating their 10th anniversary in 2026, but their history goes back much further than a decade. In 2008, the Passenger Rail Investment and Improvement Act, often abbreviated as PRIIA, was enacted into law. The act reauthorized Amtrak, providing a new set of criteria for rail corridor investment. It also mandated the establishment of the Next Generation Equipment Pool Committee. This committee was tasked with determining standards for new passenger rail equipment purchased in the U.S. The overall goal was to set requirements such that companies could produce one standard locomotive design that would conform to requirements for operations all over the U.S. with minimal modifications. By producing a one-size-fits-all locomotive, rather than multiple different models for various different environments, production costs could be reduced. Representatives from multiple different states provided input as part of the committee, particularly those from California and New York. Eventually, the main criteria established were as follows. Any passenger diesel produced for the U.S. should be able to reach a top speed of 125 miles per hour, conform to tunnel clearances in the northeastern U.S., and be U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Tier 4 compliant. In response to these requirements, Siemens Mobility began developing a brand new passenger diesel for North America. Siemens had experience building rolling stock for the U.S. market going all the way back to 1981 when it produced U2 type light rail vehicles for the startup of the San Diego Trolley. Siemens entered the heavy rail equipment market in the U.S. with the production of 70 ACS-64 electric locomotives for Amtrak beginning in 2010. After experience developing the ACS-64 and with prior experience developing the Vectron locomotive series in Europe, the Charger was created. The name Charger was selected by a vote of Siemens Mobility employees. Following criteria being established by the Next Generation Equipment Committee, the states of Illinois, California, and Washington began searching for new passenger diesels for intercity trains to replace F-59 and P-42 locomotives. In March of 2014, the Siemens Mobility Charger was selected as the preferred option, and so, the first Charger locomotive purchase was signed. Production on the first locomotives began just over a year later. On March 26, 2016, the very first completed SC-44 Charger, Illinois Department of Transportation number 4601, was unveiled for the first time. For the following year, new Charger locomotives would undergo rigorous testing all over the U.S. In June of 2016, 4601 finally left California along with Unit 4602 for a trip to Pueblo, Colorado. There, the locomotives would be studied at the Federal Railroad Administration test track. Another Midwest unit was sent out east for high-speed testing on Amtrak's Northeast Corridor. A few months later, in December of 2016, the first SCB-40 locomotives for Brightline were completed. California began testing their first 6 Chargers in March of 2017 with a trip from Oakland to Bakersfield and back along the route of the San Joaquin. Just 2 months later, California began placing their Chargers into revenue service accompanied by older locomotives. Illinois followed, with Locomotive 4613 entering service on the Hiawatha on June 27, 2017. The first run of a Charger operating solo occurred on August 24, 2017, with Locomotive 4620 on the Hiawatha. For the next several years, SC-44s continued to enter revenue service on multiple Amtrak intercity routes. Commuter railroads began receiving the new locomotives, with Maryland's MARC in 2017, and then both Coaster and Ace in 2020. In June of 2021, Amtrak took delivery of its first ALC-42 Charger for long-distance service. The locomotives made their first revenue run on the Empire Builder in February of 2020. VIA's first SCV-42 and accompanying train set was completed in September of 2021, entering service the following year. Use of Amtrak's long-distance Chargers was mostly restricted to the Empire Builder for 2022. As more locomotives arrived and crews were qualified, use of the Chargers quickly expanded to other routes. By 2026, only a handful of long-distance routes in the western U.S. had yet to see Charger locomotives enter regular service. Dual-mode Charger production began in 2023. The first two SC-42 DM units, Metro North 301 and 302, were completed in May of 2024 and shipped east for testing. The locomotives entered regular service on Metro North in September of 2025. Amtrak's first ALC-42E dual-mode Charger was completed during the first half of 2025, destined for service on Amtrak Cascades. The locomotive and entire first Aero train set departed the Siemens factory on July 22, 2025, for testing with both Amtrak and the Federal Railroad Administration. As of March of 2026, production continues on multiple Charger locomotive orders. Production of new Aero train sets and ALC-42E units for Amtrak is expected to continue through the end of the decade. Long-distance Charger production is also still underway, with deliveries not expected to conclude until the late 2020s. Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and the Connecticut Department of Transportation all have dual-mode Chargers on order, including the new battery electric Chargers on order for Metro North. Chargers also remain in production for the Dallas-Fort Worth Trinity Railway Express, with deliveries expected beginning in mid-2026. An order placed in January of 2026 for Florida's Tri-Rail commuter service is expected to be completed in 2029. So, what lies down the line for the Charger? More units will continue to be built into the coming decade. Charger production will likely last well into the mid-2030s, if not beyond, with more and more railroads purchasing the locomotives to replace older diesels. With the oldest Chargers now reaching 10 years in age, many units will soon begin midlife overhauls. Some of the older SC-44 models, particularly those in service on Amtrak Midwest trains, may receive the Amtrak-style streamlined nose cones during this process. In any event, the Siemens Mobility Charger locomotives will continue to roll along North American rails for many years to come. Well, that does it for this episode of Train Talk. Thanks for joining me for our discussion of the Siemens Mobility Charger locomotive. What is your favorite Charger model? Post a comment and let me know. As always, a special thanks to all my supporters on Patreon. If you would like notifications whenever I post to YouTube, click on the subscribe button and select the Receive All Notifications option. I'll be back next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time for a brand new railroading adventure right here on the YouTube channel. That's it for now. Until next time, I'm Mike Armstrong. I'll see you down the line. Thanks for watching.